It's time the Philadelphia Eagles show Dallas Goedert the money. I'll tell you why they have to bring back their star tight end. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase. Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the show. It's brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. My take of the show is the Philadelphia Eagles, they need to make this work with Dallas Goedert in 2025 after the draft, after not drafting a tight end, after not drafting a wide receiver. Dallas Goedert has a lot of leverage. The Eagles need him in 2025. Maybe not long term, but next year, I think they need him on offense. And especially when you talk about Dallas Goedert leverage, you look at the extension of George Kittle today, that gives him a lot of power. When Trey McBride got that extension from the Arizona Cardinals a few weeks ago, I said it didn't really have a huge impact on Goedert's future in Philly. Why? Because number one, Trey McBride is a lot younger. Number two, he's a better player, I think, right now. And he hasn't had the injury history of Dallas Goedert. So when McBride got that $19 million a year contract, I didn't think it really impacted Goedert's standing with the Eagles. But after seeing George Kittle get that contract extension with San Francisco at 32 years old, he has an extensive injury history as well. Kittle's always dealing with something. After seeing that contract, that also went for $19 million a year annually for a player that's older and has an injury history as well, Dallas Goedert is not going to accept the one-year pay cut that the Philadelphia Eagles want him to take, and they've been bullish on him taking for months now. That Josh Sweat kind of restructure of last year's offseason, that's not coming now. Like the Eagles, that's what they wanted. Their line was drawn in the sand. They were dug in. That's why I think you didn't hear a lot about the Dallas Goedert situation, because they want him back in 2025, but they don't want to give him an extension. They don't want to guarantee his salary for 2025 as well. They want him to take a pay cut on a team-friendly deal. After the Kittle contract, after Goedert's playoff run, after not taking a pass catcher in the draft, after declining Jahan Dotson's fifth-year option, so outside of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, what do you have as passing weapons beyond this year? After all of that, I think Dallas Goedert has all the leverage in the world, even though he's a 30-year-old player that's dealt with injuries every single year. I think he has the power over the Eagles, and I think they need to do this. Like, they need to bring him back for at least this year, and I think hopefully for the future. This is not like 2021 when you saw the Eagles in a similar contract dispute with Zach Ertz, and Ertz wanted a new deal, or he wanted to be traded. The Eagles wanted to bring him back for at least a little bit of the 2021 season. They did just that, and they weren't desperate to do anything with Ertz, to trade him or to extend him, because they knew they had Dallas Goedert waiting in the wings. They could kind of milk that situation and just kind of play it by ear. But with Dallas Goedert, it's different, because there is no Dallas Goedert behind him waiting in the wings. There's no Mason Taylor behind him. There's no Elijah Arroyo or a Colston Loveland or a Harold Fannin. Heck, not even a Gunnar Helm, who I would have loved to just stay at pick 96 in the third round and take the tight end out of Texas. There is none of those guys waiting in the wings. You did not take a tight end. You didn't take a receiver either in this draft. Like, you are one significant A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith injury away from being in some serious trouble when it comes to pass catchers in a Super Bowl repeat kind of season. Like, you're one injury away from being in trouble without Dallas Goedert. So I think they need to bring him back for this year. And honestly, I'm starting to get comfortable with the idea of extending him on a 2 to 3 year extension. I don't want him on a 4+ year deal. You know, I don't think Dallas Goedert's going to age like a Travis Kelce at 36. However, there's been tight ends with injury histories that have aged pretty well into their 30s. And just tight ends in general can play for a long time. Like I said, Travis Kelce is 36 years old. Zach Ertz is 35. He hasn't been with the Eagles now for three and a half seasons, and he had 10 catches against us in the NFC Championship. Like, he's still a very effective player. George Kittle and Mark Andrews, they've been banged up as well in their career. They're over the age of 32, and they're still at the top of their game. Tony Gonzalez played late into his 30s. Antonio Gates as well. Rob Gronkowski played into his mid-30s, and even with a lot of injuries, was still a very effective player at the end with Tom Brady and a Super Bowl championship winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So for me, I'm comfortable with him getting an extension. I know 30 years old and his injury history, it sounds crazy to give him a new deal. But again, you could get another 3 to 5 years out of Goedert. Maybe not because of the injuries. Maybe it's more 2 to 4 years. But I don't think this is the last year that Dallas Goedert is going to be an effective football player. And again, when you look at beyond 2025, outside of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, what do you have in the passing game? Like, I know they ran the football a lot last year, and they might not need, when you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith who are target monsters, and Saquon Barkley's going to touch the ball more than any running back in football, maybe that fourth guy that gets the ball isn't that important. But what if one of those players gets injured? And like I said, I think you're going to want to pass more this year. So there's going to be more opportunities for Dallas Goedert to catch the football. Maybe you do believe Jahan Dotson can take a step this year and be a bigger role player as that third passing option. I think he could be that. But the Eagles declined his fifth-year option. He is not going to be a Bird after 2025. So unless you think Johnny Wilson or Grant Calcaterra, Johnny Wilson's going to move to tight end and blow up in year 2, or Grant Calcaterra is going to take a huge step as the starting tight end, like I don't know what the Eagles are going to do. I mean, there are some options that we'll get into coming up next on Locked On Eagles, some new tight end options they could explore, trade for, or sign in for agency. But none of these guys that I'm going to mention are Dallas Goedert. Like, I know he gets injured 3 to 6 games a year, and you kind of have to just be okay with that fact, that reality. And it's annoying. And he is aging. And normally this is a move you get out of early before later. You'd rather get out of this kind of player 1 year early than 1 year late. But the Eagles are in a unique circumstance where they're trying to repeat as Super Bowl champions. And I do think that even if you don't give him an extension, it's worth guaranteeing his money this year to bring him back and try to run it back. It is not worth the day 3 draft pick that you're going to get for Dallas Goedert if you trade him, when you have so many day 3 picks next year as it is, and you just had 8 of them on Saturday. Like, they need his playoff production. You can say he's not reliable in the regular season, but the guy has never missed a playoff game in 6 different playoff runs from 2018 up until now. He's one of 5 tight ends in NFL history that have 2 different playoff runs where he had at least 16 receptions. Like, I think he's top 2 in receiving yards and receptions in Eagles postseason history. This is a gamer in the most important moments of a football game, in the biggest moments of a season. And I think they need to make sure, they need to stop playing games with Goedert like they were Zach Ertz in 2021. They're being stubborn. They think they have the leverage. I think they need to be a little more willing to make this work and come to some sort of middle ground. Like, it's just one of those situations where both sides, I do think the Eagles have a really good argument for why they feel the way they do. Again, he is never reliable in the regular season to play a full year. He is 30 years old. They have a lot of players they're paying on offense. They have the most money invested in top 10 contracts of any team in football. They have a lot of young guys on defense they got to pay soon. Like, I understand that. So they do have good reasons for why they feel the way they do, but so does Dallas Goedert on the other side. It's just one of those situations where both sides have their line in the sand drawn, and both are very understandable. You just hope there's a middle ground found, because I think the Eagles are going to be a much worse football team in 2025 if Dallas Goedert is not in midnight green, especially now that you did not address tight end or receiver in the draft. You are not going to be a better football team next year without Dallas Goedert. That's just the way I feel. I would be comfortable with an extension. You better at least guarantee his money. And I don't think the Eagles will. I think they want him to take a pay cut, but I think after the Kittle contract, the pay cut idea is out the window. I don't think he's going to be willing to accept that. And I don't think he should, and he doesn't have to. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. If Dallas Goedert's fate, though, still is not in Philadelphia, does not lie in Philadelphia in 2025, who's going to replace him? There's 2 new interesting options that just opened up because of the draft results. We'll get into it coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. It was really bad. Now I budget smarter and save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I really think the Eagles need to make this work with Dallas Goedert. After Kittle's contract, the pay cut is out the window. You got to either guarantee his salary for this year. There's no guaranteed money left on Goedert's contract for 2025, or you got to extend him. But I think the Eagles need to make it work. They need to do one of those two things. If they don't, and they're really stubborn on this, they're bullish, they are not going to make this decision to keep Goedert by guaranteeing his money or extending him, and they're going to move on, and they're looking for tight end options as we speak. I think it's a mistake, but I do think there will be some interesting names out there. Now, you guys have heard me say these names like over and over again. You've heard me mention Michael Mayer, the former second-round pick out of Michigan, who's a Las Vegas Raider, buried behind Brock Bowers and his 200 catches a year, right? So Michael Mayer is a favorite option for a lot of Eagles fans and analysts that are discussing these options. Luke Musgrave is an interesting player from the Green Bay Packers, a former second-round pick that's been injured a lot in his first 2 years. Tucker Kraft was taken the same year as Musgrave for the Packers. They went back-to-back tight ends in the second and third round. Kraft has emerged as a pretty reliable target for Jordan Love. They have so many wide receivers now, and we'll discuss that in a second. So maybe Luke Musgrave is available. I will say there are two new options that I think could be available that are intriguing because of the draft. The Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks both took a tight end in the first 2 rounds. The Bears took Colson Loveland out of Michigan with their 10th overall pick. The Seattle Seahawks in round 2, I believe it was 57 overall, they took Miami tight end Elijah Arroyo. So both of those teams are willing to move forward now with a rookie tight end as their main starter. It leaves 2 veteran names on the trade block, I think, from those squads. The Chicago Bears have Cole Kmet. The Seattle Seahawks have Noah Fant. Neither one is Dallas Goedert level good. But the best you can do at this point, heading into May for the Eagles to replace Goedert, again, like the big names in free agency are gone. The top draft picks, you didn't get them because you either went in another route, a different position, or the board just didn't fall and you couldn't trade up for them or they didn't fall in your lap. So now if Goedert is not the plan and you have to go to plan B, what's the best case scenario? I don't think it's Grant Calcaterra. I don't think it's Michael Mayer or Luke Musgrave. I think for 2025 to get an immediate impact starter at this position, I think it would be Noah Fant or Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet last year had kind of a down year, 47 catches, 474 yards, 4 touchdowns, but still not bad. 2 years ago, though, he had 73 catches, 719 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Like, Kmet has been an underrated player since he was drafted in 2020. In 2022, he had over 500 yards, over 50 receptions, and he had 7 touchdowns. The year before, 60 catches, 612 yards. Like, he's a very reliable. I feel like every single year he's been the 7th or 8th best tight end in football, right? Or maybe like fringe top 10. And I think that's a good plan B in May. That's the best you can do if you lose an elite player at the position, in my opinion, in Dallas Goedert. You're not going to get the run after the catch ability, the elite blocking, the deep threat, the combination of all that is Dallas Goedert. Again, I think Goedert is a special talent when he is healthy, and we saw that in the playoff run last year. But Cole Kmet would be an interesting option. Noah Fant, I think, is a guy I've always liked coming out of the University of Iowa back in 2019. And kind of like Kmet, he's been in that tier. 562 yards 1 year, then 673, then 670, 486, 414, had 500 yards last year and 48 catches, only 1 touchdown, but normally a 3 to 4 touchdown a year guy. He's athletic. He's a pretty explosive tight end. So if you want more of a speed kind of player here, Fant might be an option. Those are two names because of the draft I can now see the Eagles be interested in. Those, like when we're talking about the next moves the Eagles can make, like they're always interested in free agency after the draft because it doesn't count towards the comp pick formula. Like 2017, they brought in LeGarrette Blount. 2022, they brought in James Bradbury. They tried with Jaquiski Tart that year as well. That didn't work out, so they traded for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the summer. They brought in Ronald Darby as well back in 2017. Last year, it was Mekhi Becton when they missed out on the offensive line depth of that draft class. So Howie is always working the phones around this time of year. If he's going to make a move, what is it going to be? I think it would likely be at tight end if Dallas Goedert's gone. I do not think they can go into the season with Cole Kmet as their starter. Maybe they like him better than we do, and I think he did take a nice step last year as a pass-catching tight end. Not enough for me to feel like he can be the third option in the passing game or the fourth option with Smith and Brown, and then it's, Cole Kmet and Dotson. I don't feel great about that. So, gun to my head, the Eagles make a move soon. I think it's going to be, we got to find out what the solution is, the resolution with Dallas Goedert. If he's gone, I think they do bring in a tight end. I don't think safety's on the board anymore. After they drafted Drew Makuba, apparently he wants to be called Drew, not Andrew, which I like. Drew Makuba coming in as a second-round safety. You got Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship. I think we can stop with the Justin Simmons reunion talk with Vic Fangio. I don't think that's happening. Or Julian Blackman from the Colts. Don't think he's coming in anymore. I think it's a tight end or it's a pass catcher. Maybe it's a wide receiver. I thought about this today. Like I was thinking about trade options for the Birds to bring in a pass catcher, and you heard me talk about all those tight ends: Kmet, Fant, Michael Mayer, Musgrave. Like those four tight ends are the big names. What if they want to bring in another receiver? I just laid out how Green Bay is overloaded with pass catchers now, and they just drafted Matthew Golden from Texas in the first round. Kyle Williams, the kind of hybrid receiver running back from TCU, they drafted him on day 2. The Green Bay Packers they're stacked with like B-tier receivers. Would they be willing to trade a guy like a Dontavian Wicks? Would they be willing to trade a Christian Watson? Another top pick from 2022 that, it's such a Howie Roseman move. Watson has kind of fallen out of favor in Green Bay because he can't stay healthy, but he was a second-round pick with a lot of good traits, good size, good speed down the field. He's a deep threat. Kind of like the Dotson move of last year. Maybe they're interested in Watson or another receiver from that class, Romeo Doubs. Peter Bukowski, our good friend, the host of the Locked On Packers podcast, he said, responding to me when I was tweeting about this, he said Doubs would probably be the most likely available player in a trade of those three between Wicks, Watson, and Doubs. I would prefer Watson the most, then Wicks, then Doubs. But maybe the Eagles do say we're going to go tight end by committee and Cole Kmet is going to lead the way there. And then we've got like Harrison Bryant, maybe like that, and Kalen as well. Maybe that's the move they go with. And then they go heavier on receiver. I could see that as another option too. Like trading for a Packers pass catcher feels like the obvious move. If you're not bringing in a Cole Kmet, a Noah Fant, a Michael Mayer, if it's not one of those three players, I think they look to Green Bay because there's 3 to 4 options that might really interest the Eagles for their depth chart. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, we wrap up this week's shows, or today's edition of the show. And I want to get into Jalen Hurts, how he plays a part in the Eagles' current decisions with pass catchers. I wonder if they trust him to elevate more, and that's why they are willing to let Goedert go. I'll tell you why that makes sense to me coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. This Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. The playoffs are already here. We're in the middle of round 1, and it's been intense, especially that Nuggets-Clippers series. Unbelievable. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting just so easy. Whether it's picking your favorite team to win or diving into player props. Player props are my go-to. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, wrapping up this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. It's interesting. I feel like the Eagles are not in the right position to just let Dallas Goedert walk. And you might say that's crazy. You have an elite offensive line. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. You have Saquon Barkley. Jahan Dotson, a former first-round pick, is your fourth guy in this weaponry. And Jalen Hurts can run the football. It's a 1% problem, right? Not wanting to lose Dallas Goedert. Some might make that argument, and I think you have good logic there. That's a good argument. But for me, again, you got to remember injuries here. Last year was the first time we saw what life would be like without A.J. Brown and or Devontae Smith. Tampa Bay, week 4, when the sky was falling, we lost both of those guys for that offense, and it was a disaster. And so Dallas Goedert himself is not very reliable. He's always injured. He misses 3 to 6 games a year. You can bank on that. That's chalk. That's coming every single year. But it'd be nice to have him as an option if Smith or Brown do get hurt again. Because if they do, and Goddard's not here anymore, what? It's Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown, and then it's Dotson and Cole Kmet as your top 2 options in the passing game. And I know you still have Saquon Barkley in the backfield, but I do think the Eagles want to pass the football more this year. I think they want to make sure Saquon is healthy during the playoffs, and he cannot take on the historic workload that he did last year for that to happen. So for me, I just think you really need to make it work with Goddard. You need to guarantee his money for this year and bring him back. I don't think an extension is happening. If they wanted to pay Goddard, they would have done that already. The Eagles are very proactive with contracts. They are the complete opposite with Goddard. They would be extremely reactive in this way, and that is just not how Howie Roseman operates. So I think he's tipping his hand a little bit in that way. But I do think he wants him back for this year. I think he sees the value in Goddard this year in a championship window, and he wants him back. I hope a middle ground is met because they need him. But maybe the Eagles are thinking in a different way too. Maybe they're saying we can afford to lose another pass catcher because not because of what we have on the roster, but because Jalen Hurts is going to continue to evolve as a pocket passer. And I don't think the Eagles are ever going to be a team like, what the Buffalo Bills are doing right now. Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, just freaked out on my brother, who's a host at the Bills radio affiliate, for my brother dare suggesting the Bills address tight end or receiver more than having Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, and Joshua Palmer. My brother said, hey, maybe do a little bit more for Josh Allen so he doesn't have to carry you. Right? Do what the Eagles are doing and always surround your franchise quarterback with weapons. Yes, you want a franchise quarterback to be able to elevate like Carson Wentz did in 2019 when you don't have those options available, but you don't want that quarterback to always have to do that. And that's what the Eagles have been so great at. Even in the Wentz era, they always tried to support him with a lot of weapons, and they've done an amazing job supporting Jalen. So I don't think the Eagles are ever going to switch up on that philosophy, and they're going to turn into the Bills who just refuse to draft a receiver, and then when you call them out for it, they get soft, right? So shout out to Brandon Beane. That was classy. You guys can tell I'm better about that a little bit. I don't think the Eagles will ever take that route, but I do wonder if they're going to say, hey, we have 2 to 3 elite options here for Jalen. We don't need 4 or 5. We can afford to lose Dallas because Jalen is going to start to elevate even more as a passer. I do wonder if they think he's going to get to a level soon, even as soon as this year, where they can start trusting him to just make everybody around him better as a passer. I feel like Jalen Hurts makes guys around him better as a leader, as a mobile quarterback. It opens things up for the passing game as a deep ball specialist. But when it comes to just as an assassin, just picking apart defenses in the pocket with anticipation, with accuracy, throwing against the blitz, against pressure, pre-snap, just calling you out, knowing what's coming, knowing where to go with the ball at all times. I think Jalen is, naturally throughout his career been more inconsistent in that way. But if we get the Jalen Hurts we saw in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, that just knows what's coming every single play, has an answer for the blitz, has an answer for everything. The ball's coming out quick. He's throwing into tight windows with anticipation. He's just locked in. We don't always get that Jalen Hurts. Sometimes we'll get that version. Like 2022, we got that a lot. The first half of 2023. If that just starts to become who he is, I think they can afford to lose some talent in the passing game. I don't want to, but I do think Jalen's going to start to make guys around him better. I think he's going to make Jahan Dotson better. He's going to make Grant Calcaterra better. He's going to help Johnny Wilson develop in year 2. Remember, This is only the second year that Jalen Hurts is running the show pre-snap, diagnosing things, calling things out, calling audibles at the line of scrimmage. That was Jason Kelce's job for the first 4 years of Hurts' career. Then this past year, Jalen took that mantle on and helped them win a Super Bowl. Remember, this is year 2. Like, he was only 1 year into doing that. So he's only going to get better in that way. That's going to really help him help others. I also heard a quarterback coach of Jalen Hurts on the Rich Eisen show talk about how Jalen right now is working on some things mechanically to get the ball out faster, to quicken his throwing motion even more. I think he's done a great job over the years shortening that. He never had an elongated throwing motion like Carson Wentz did. It wasn't very windy, very tight, compressed throwing motion, which is good to get the ball out fast. But maybe he's starting to throw from different arm angles. Like, I think that's what the quarterback coach alluded to get the ball out just, 0.2 seconds quicker, which could be all the difference in a tight play on third down in a big situation. Like, all these things that Jalen is working on, I think is going to help Jahan Dotson do his job better this year. Grant Calcaterra, Harrison Bryant, and, all these different players. So I'm not saying that's going to be part of the Eagles strategy now, and they're like, oh, we don't need pass catchers. Like, we can let A.J. Brown go eventually. Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert can walk, Saquon. Jalen's going to carry it all. I don't think they're ever going to take that radical approach like some teams do. They're never going to be the 2000s Eagles where Jalen Hurts is throwing to guys like Todd Pinkston and James Thrash and Freddie Mitchell. That's not going to happen. But I do wonder if they think Jalen's going to help and it can allow them to let some guys leave and put resources elsewhere across the roster. Instead of having 3 to 4 elite weapons, maybe you have 2 to 3. I don't know. It's just a thought. But regardless if that's part of their plan or part of their thought process or not, the fact of the matter is, with Dallas Goedert or without, Jalen Hurts' evolution as a pocket passer, I think is going to make the Eagles it sounds crazy to be a much better football team than last year, but I do think they're going to be a much more efficient passing team this year because of what I'm hearing about Jalen's game. That Super Bowl was no joke. Like, what he did could be foreshadowing into his future. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.